Hello and welcome, beloveds, to the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. MumbiSeraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you are moving into living life truly on your own terms, that you are moving into being more self-sufficient, self-reliant, spiritually and mentally first. Because the body always follows where the soul and the spirit goes. But those are stories for other days. I might actually start that channel for real, for real. We're reporting live and direct from the foothills of Mount Kenya. Quite a few of you have gotten in touch with me, gotten in touch with me. Yeah, exactly. To share this particular story coming out of Zimbabwe. A lot of you extremely disappointed, where Zimbabwe has announced that they are going to return land to Mzungus. But I think people didn't read the fine print, you know what I mean? So what they're saying is that, when the land was seized from 2000 to 2001, Mugabe said that they would initiate taking the land from 4,500 approximately Mzungu farmers. Excuse me. I've done that every time on this show, in order to and to settle hundreds of thousands of, Zimbabwean squatters. Now, what has happened is that Zimbabwe has actually announced that they've offered to return land to foreign nationals whose farms were seized under the controversial program 2 decades ago. Now, the seizures were meant to redress colonial era land grabs, but they actually contributed to the country's decline because, the West actually came down so hard and chose to make an example of Zimbabwe. There's a myth that goes around, I don't know if it's truth or fiction, that says that a lot of, at least the East and Southern African countries had come together and they had all come up with this pact where they were going to actually, collectively push for the divided kingdom and, Belgium and all these former colonizers to give back the land that a lot of them still own. Because I told you, Africa was never really free. They just replaced, the Mzungu overseers with our sold out puppet presidents. So they went through the front door and came right back through the side door. And what they say is that all these countries, including Zimbabwe, Kenya was allegedly on that list, and many others, came together and they agreed that they would make a collective push to get the land back from the Mzungus. But now, apparently, Mugabe was coming up for election. This is now the myth, right? Mugabe was coming up for election, etc., etc. So he kind of went ahead knowing that his brothers and sisters were going to follow. And the thing is, in all these international meetings, there's always a French mole, there's always Mzungu moles or people who have sold out to the system because the system isn't real. It's not about leadership. It's not the greatest and the wisest that are leading us. It's actually the most corrupt and the ones who are willing to play dirty and the ones who are willing to literally sell our collective soul to the devil. So they say that because Mugabe, he was facing a really tough re-election battle, he went ahead assuming that the African nations would follow him and they would also demand compensation. But the British and all these other Mzungu governments came down so hard on Zimbabwe, and they actually said that they would make Zimbabwe an example. And so a lot of people are extremely emotional, because what happens is that the foreigners who are getting the land, it's not the former colonizers. They like to call them the Mzungu Zimbabweans, but that's an oxymoron, although even Zimbabwe is an oxymoron. But they're saying that, the foreigners who owned land during that time, there were hundreds of Europeans who did, from mostly Dutch, British, and German nationals, and their investments were actually protected under international agreements, and they're the ones who could benefit from this offer, allegedly. And they said that, this was to redress the colonial era land grab. But what has happened now is that the US has said that in order for the sanctions to be lifted, the economic sanctions to be lifted, and for basically Zimbabwe to come out of jail, they must return all the foreign land. And let's not forget, they've actually already offered to give 35 billion, is it 32 or 35 billion dollars back to, to compensate. And they say for improvements on the land and not the land itself, the former colonizers. And this is while there is epic inflation in Zimbabwe, a lot of, acute hunger, and there's so many issues. But, the government feels that if they get into the good graces, they'll be able to get back into the matrix. But the matrix is falling. And I really don't see ZANU-PF surviving 2020 because Zimbabweans have to take their nation back. And, and not, this is not the time. Anyway, we're going back to a place and time where it's not about who owns the land physically. Because if you're not owning it spiritually, that land will torment you. Anyway, those are deep stories for other days. Until next time, tuko pamoja. Welcome to Africa Watch on the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. MumbiSeraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I pray you're well in all your ways and that you are living your best life. Thanks to every single person that subscribes to the channel, that supports us through our Patreon. Our Patreon family is growing. Go ahead and consider joining it, for as little as $5 a month. And thanks to everyone that donates to us through our PayPal accounts monthly. Really, you guys have enabled and facilitated so much this year. We wouldn't have been able to travel as much. We were able to attend the African Union Summit in in Ethiopia because of you guys. We went to the Divided Kingdom with your help and were able to do all these interviews and shows there. We managed to go to the US with your help. We went to Tanzania as well and reported, and now, so much happening. And we're just really, really grateful that we were also able to close out the year with a visit to Gambia. Now, the African Union and the Southern African Development Community, known as SADC, is actually at war with the European Union and the divided states. Over the continued sanctions that have been placed on Zimbabwe. Now, we've seen over the last few weeks, inflation up as 300%, we saw different prices of like lotions, which were 5, 10, 15 times the regular price. Has just been, and Zimbabweans are suffering. But I've been saying this on this show for so long, that they have decided to make Zimbabwe a scapegoat, and the continuous begging and pleading with the West to save Zimbabwe is just embarrassing. And that's what we see now, because what happened is that the African Union and SADC actually are pushing for the lifting of sanctions on Zimbabwe to save the country from, imminent economic collapse. Like literally, Zimbabwe is on its knees. Now, these sanctions were imposed by the West nearly 20 years ago after Mugabe, the late, said that they were going to start taking land back from the Mzungu and giving it back to the majority black people. And, this made him a pariah internationally, and they came hard. They put these sanctions. So for the last 20 years, they have been on a concerted effort to grind the Zimbabwean economy to a halt. But the sad thing about this story is that the African Union and the Southern African Development Community do not have the economic power or wherewithal to help Zimbabwe not collapse. That they still have to go and beg the West and Europe to save, Zimbabwe. What are these 54 countries for, or 50 countries for? Can they do business and help Zimbabwe get back on its feet? But we have so many compromised leaders. So, I mean, for me, it's good to see that, the AU and SADC have been sending a series of dispatches saying, urging for the removal of sanctions, saying that it would discourage, they don't care. Why you're giving excuses to people who don't care, but saying that it would discourage mass immigration of Zimbabweans to neighboring countries, and it would put the country in good stead for loans abroad to stabilize the economy. And I find this so heartbreaking. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.